poem is entitled On Backbones and Education. I've always been this blasphemous Berkeley splattered boy. I think. Sometimes I lose my backbone, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes my spine flops like a folded yoga mat, and other times it stands straight as a stop sign or a broom's handle. Listen, in kindergarten, at Malcolm X Elementary School, I learned how to paint. And in 5th grade at Malcolm X Elementary School, I learned how to paint my colors on white walls. And in 10th grade at Berkeley High School, I'm learning about people who painted in an art history class that I've cried for, out of stress and also out of love. And in elementary school, I learned how to cherish a multicultural student body, as in, I actually had friends who were a different color than I was, and we learned how to touch color brush hands to paper until we were abstract expressionists. And on the century-sized playground of Malcolm X Elementary School, before kindergarten even began, in the preliminary play session introducing students and parents to the school, I met a boy who I'll never forget, because he was, or is, my best friend, but who I seem to have lost touch with, and this is where my backbone goes. The way I lose old friends like the hands in Michelangelo's The Creation of Man splitting in two and stretching backwards forever, only instead of God and man, it's just two human boys. Just two hands reaching towards each other but constantly gaining distance, except you kept reaching and eventually I just turned around. And in middle school, I learned that kids aren't always nice. But that's okay, because I learned that books are friendly, and I learned what good companions teachers make, and luckily, I've never had a year where I haven't had a teacher who I would want to spend my whole lunch with. And in the 8th grade, I learned how colors functioned in science class with Miss Hamai, about the electromagnetic spectrum in relation to Newton's discoveries. And in 10th grade, I'm learning about color theory from Mr. Kahn, teaching about impressionism, about how when you place some colors next to each other without blending them, it produces a sharper color than the paints would give off if they were physically combined, which is kind of like true integration, keeping individuality while simultaneously becoming one whole. But that's not always what high school has been like, and in the 8th grade, in Miss Amai's classroom, there was a sign that said, "No room for homophobia," and today, while making a joke to this girl, I was a little bit too quick to say, "I'm not gay. I'm not gay." Which is kind of where my backbone goes, because I don't stand up for what I believe in all the time, because I let people go who I should hold on to, because it's like I'll just laugh along. It's like painting with rococo frivolity. It's like spitting out other people's opinions. It's like segregation on the schoolyard, and life is sometimes like home turned house turned toxic waste bin. It's like me with my backbone turned flexible, turned flimsy, turned lonely. It's like, come on, Noah. It's like the achievement gap. It's like budget cuts. It's like the grossly unjust distribution of wealth. It's like kids are failing while others pass and people aren't doing anything about it. It's like, come on, Berkeley. It's like, at times, my education and I are flawed and floundering. We are far from living the dream. But then it's like in the 5th grade. Berkeley, in the 5th grade, I learned about Christopher Columbus in a way that wasn't a lie. Berkeley, in the 5th grade, I learned about how Bay Street covers a Native American burial ground. Berkeley, in the 5th grade, I learned to rap, not really, but try. With Ayanti and Nasakori. And we used the word scallywag as an insult, and in the 5th grade, I learned how to prank call people at recess. Berkeley, I know there are places you have the strength of a Malcolm X playground that I met my best friend on, the steel basketball hoop, the metal fence that shook but never broke, and Berkeley, you taught me that painting is not always meant to be flat, linear, controlled. I grew up on your canvas. You told me to draw myself into any existence I wanted, and so I did. I know we're all just squiggles, but when you look at us really close, we make people who breathe. And when you look at us from afar, we make even more people who breathe, and we're a community. And even though we're all so broken in parts, like me, like this education system, like you, Berkeley schools gave me the strength I have. Berkeley and I are flawed but growing, and when I remember my Berkeley, I remember the power within myself, so listen. You're living and breathing and hearing, and so am I. And you're kind of old. I mean, you don't look a day over 25, especially you, Grandma. But you're kind of old, and I'm 16. And how is this world going to run unless youth are given the tools they need to succeed? Too often, we are cast off as half a seesaw, hopeless, useless. But do not forget that we are screaming to hold this world, that we are the only way to keep a future afloat in Berkeley, in Oakland, in California, in the United States, in the world, in Berkeley. This poem is an outrage. A thank you letter, a thank you letter, a thank you letter, a thank you letter, a plea for your money, for your love. This poem is an apology. This poem is a confession. This poem is a painting. It's for you and for my teachers and for Berkeley schools. This poem is a love poem.